Yes, sir. Welcome back to Talkin Nets, episode 47. Keith McPherson, Hudson Flynn coming to you on the night of Damian Lillard's biggest game of his career. The Nets take on the Portland Trail Blazers tonight at 9 from the NBA campus in Orlando. But first, we're going to talk to you about the Nets beating Orlando, which was my one wish this week. I wanted to see the Nets come out and punch the Magic in the face, and they did that with the backup bubble Nets, with the backup Brooklyn bubble boys. I'm having a good week, man. How you doing, Hudson Flynn?
I'm doing well. I'm back in the Bronx. We're getting back in the groove. We're finishing up the regular season in the bubble. We got a lot of good stuff to talk about. We beat the Magic, and we both hate the Magic. Nets fans as a group may not hate the Magic, but we have a special hatred for the Magic, so I'm glad we pulled that win out. And just like you said, I saw you put out a tweet right when the rosters got announced, when they saw, we're going to have people resting. You came out, you said, backup bubble Nets, still going to win. That's exactly what they did. They never trailed. I mean, they just balled out. 12-point win, but it was more dominant than just 12 points, and it was dominant from our deep backups.
Yeah, and I think I said to you, I don't know if you feel this way, but it's personal for me. I think I tweeted something from Talkin Nets, and I put my name by it because I was like, I don't know if Hudson feels this way about the Orlando Magic. And then you replied, fuck Orlando. And I was like, okay, cool. We're on the same page. The Magic I guess the rivalry there is that they've been close to us in the standings. I've never thought they were better than us before the season stopped in the NBA bubble. I don't know. I never thought the Magic were a better team than this Nets team as currently constructed, or with Kyrie or with Spencer Dinwiddie. They beat us a couple times in the regular season where I was like, yo, they're not better than us. We should beat them every time. We should beat the teams under us. So it was good to see them come out without, our full squad and punch the Magic in the mouth. The Magic shot terribly in the first half. Guys like TLC, got to give him credit. Got to give
17
TLC
points
love.
in the first quarter.
He came out cooking. And I know we'll celebrate this guy this episode, Jeremiah Martin. I don't think anybody in Nets land doesn't know who he is anymore. I think people on the NBA landscape are starting to say, who is that? Number 0 for your Brooklyn Nets, Jeremiah Martin.
Yeah, the guy out of Memphis. It was fun when we were discussing who we were going to make our player of the game for the final score graphic. We said it's got to be Jeremiah Martin, and I'm putting the graphic together, and I'm looking, and I Google his name. I Google Jeremiah Martin Nets. There wasn't anything there. I couldn't find a photo. If you go to our Instagram, you go to our Twitter, you look at that photo that I chose. It's grainy. It's zoomed in. It's got bad resolution because it's the only photo. It's the only photo of Jeremiah Martin that we got. But he went out and he hauled 24 points, 6 assists, and that's just what you like to see. It's what we talked about before these regular season games, before the bubble. It's a tryout for everyone, and these players are making a statement. Jeremiah Martin, not going to be playing next to KD next season, but he might have earned himself a shot because of this game, because of what he's done. And I'm glad to see it. I'm glad that he's earning these chances, and I'm glad that the rest of the team is earning themselves these chances because, they're just showing that, first off, that Sean Marks can find gems. He's got that Cashman-like ability to find talent. And it's just, a testament to the process, to the culture that Kenny built, to the culture that's still carried over into now, even with Jacques at the head. And I love it. And I love this Nets team. And you know what? Who I love? I love Zanin Musa.
Musa appreciation pod again. Man, with Martin, when you and I were talking about, okay, who's the player of the game, who's the performer of the game, I guess our Talkin Nets, that's what I'm talking about, player of the game. We could have went with TLC, but we've already given him one, and his 24 is great, but he was starting. When you get 24 off the bench from Jeremiah Martin, you got to give him the nod. Talking about Musa also came out with his career high, 17
Musa
points.
mania, baby.
Yo, it's funny how much things change just over the course of a couple months. Nets Twitter hated Musa. I'm a part of that too. I think when the COVID-19 stuff came out, they're like, who snitched? Who told about the Nets getting COVID-19? Everyone was like,
Musa.
Musa. It was definitely Musa.
But nah, Musa looked great. I mean, 17 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, high percentage shooting. He hit his free throws, and I thought it was funny. We put out some Musa appreciation posts, and you knew the Musa hate was coming.
Mm-hmm.
But like, it's just consistent. It's just no matter what Musa does, when he puts up, a good game, a career high, they're like, nah, Musa sucks. You saw the way he shot. He shot so many times. I could go out there and put up 17 points with the amount of shots Musa was taking. Like, what?
No,
Shut up.
you couldn't. Musa's a pretty big dude, and he's a young dude. I feel like he gets a lot of hate, and he's very
21.
early. He's very early in his career. Another dude that gets a lot of hate is Lance Thomas, and he actually put up 12 points, hit a couple threes. I was pleasantly surprised. He went 3 for 4 from 3-point, and I'm like, okay. We had Lance Thomas in the starter. We had him in the starting 5. We pulled him from being a starter because Nets Twitter was all talking about Lance Thomas sucks. Take him out of starting 5. Don't start him again. He comes off the bench in his Magic game, gives us 12 points. It's 3 out of 4 3-point shots. And I'm honestly surprised. Let's go Duke. I'm like, there's Lance Thomas proving people wrong with the blonde-topped fro.
Lance Thomas. I mean, I'm glad that Lance Thomas played well, but I'm more glad that we pulled him out of the starting lineup and gave Rhodey those minutes. And, didn't give Rhodey really a lot of run in this game. I think that's important. And I guess if we're looking towards the future, if we're looking towards tonight, we had a discussion on the last podcast. What game are we going to rest players for? What game are we going to play players for? We both wanted them to play the players in this game because we hate Orlando, but we didn't. And we went out there. We got that win anyway. We shut them up anyway. We showed how trash Orlando is anyway. And now we got the game tonight. And we according to Jacques Vaughn, we got the full complement of players. We got 4 rotations. We're taking this game as seriously as the Suns want us to take this game.
Bro, we ran out the backup Brooklyn bubble Nets, the backup bubble boys, and we handled the Magic. The Magic all are from Orlando. Like, they can't wait until they get swept by the Bucks and they can just pack up their stuff and go right down the street to go home. I was surprised in this game. We're talking about Rhodey with a dab of ranch. This dude was playing well against Vucevic. We got Rhodey in the 5, like playing against Vucevic, who's an all-star. Even Dante Hall, came off the bench, got his little 10 points. Dante Hall is a G League player. They're playing with NBA All-Stars. This is an NBA All-Star center. And that just made me think like, the Magic are out of it. The Magic don't really care. They don't want to be here anymore. They're literally in jail where they live. Like, if you think about the Orlando Magic's team, they are locked in the NBA bubble, probably no more than 25, 30 minutes from where they all live. That's kind of crazy. They're probably ready to get out of there. And against the Nets on Tuesday, they looked outmatched. They sat Aaron Gordon. They sat Michael Carter-Williams. They sat Terrence Ross. I forget who they sat. And then you got Bleacher Report and like Slam and like NBA like looking for highlights. Of course, they go to Markelle Fultz. They show Markelle Fultz get a little like hezzy bucket down 20. And I'm like, yo, I know the only player you guys recognize is number 1 pick Markelle Fultz, but the backup Brooklyn bubble Nets are beating their ass. Show us. Talk about the Nets.
And that's what I'm surprised by. There's not a lot of talk about the Nets. I mean, if you look at anything that like Bleacher Report and all like the Score and all these websites are putting out, even when they do power rankings, they're not mentioning the Nets. Like, everyone loves the Suns, and they should love the Suns. Suns are 8-0. Suns play great. Suns are a great story. But nobody's talking about the fact that the Nets are rolling out a G League lineup and winning all of these games against these big opponents and like winning them convincingly. And I don't get the Nets slander. I don't get the net, the ignoring the Nets one day, and then Bleacher Report comes out today and puts the Nets in a promo for their new animated series.
Love that. As soon as you posted that, I'm like, yo, this is great. And then even the like New Jersey crossed out with Brooklyn. Somebody's paying attention. Somebody's watching. And what I think it is, the league and the media are in denial, right? They've always been in denial, and they don't want what's happening to happen. The New Jersey Nets moved to Brooklyn. They developed their own style and culture that can rival the New York Knicks. They build up for a few years, and they land KD and Kyrie. Now, without KD and Kyrie, they still have that culture, right? I talked on, I think, Talking Sports, and I think I did a sportscaster stream about how strong the culture is in Brooklyn, because it didn't die with Kenny. It didn't die with getting rid of the, dancing Nets like Theo. It's still there in our core guys like Jared Allen, like Joe Harris, like Karis LeVert, and it gets passed on through this team. And people don't want to give Jacques Vaughn credit. Jacques Vaughn is a voice that was there with Kenny. Jacques Vaughn is a voice that has elevated his voice, elevated himself to motivate these guys and push them to the next level. There is no laying down, right? Even going into this game tonight, you see the Brooklyn Nets Twitter tweet out, yo, we're trying to win every game on the schedule. Like, there ain't no favors out here. We're not doing any favors. Like, we're trying to beat you. And all that credit's got to go to Jacques Vaughn. I think he's 7-2. And I've beat this drum to death because people want to try and like act like it's not a thing, because they want to say, oh, the Nets aren't playing anybody, or, oh, you guys are getting too hyper on the Nets. They're beating teams when they're sitting people. Yeah, but the Nets are missing this, like the Nets are missing just as many talented players as anyone that sits their talented players. So you can't really get off with that. And Jacques Vaughn, I think he should be at the top of this head coaching search. I know they're saying the Nets want to cast a wide net, but you got to give that man his respect. Like, I'm tired of just seeing people shit on him like, oh, he's leading the bubble Nets against teams that aren't playing that hard, or these games don't matter. Like, y'all in denial. The media is in denial. The NBA is in denial. Even some Nets fans are in denial.
And Nets Twitter's in denial. I was on the Twitter. I put out a post. I said, what does Jacques need to do to convince you that he's going to be the head coach and to have confidence in him? And the comments that I got were so much nonsense. People were like, okay, he coached these players, but how is he going to be able to coach superstars? And I'm like, man, first off, I don't know. Second off, he did coach superstars. He coached Kyrie during the year. You can't act like he wasn't there. If you're going to give, Tyronn Lue credit for being an assistant on this Clippers team, you got to give Jacques Vaughn credit for being an assistant on this Nets team and being there this whole time with Kyrie, with KD. But, like, I just don't understand the slander. I don't understand how you cannot see what this man is doing and have doubts about it. And I understand that, even just for, appearance's sake, they got to say that they're casting a wide net. They're doing their due diligence, because for some people it might seem like they're just like, oh, we got a guy that won a couple of games, we're going to settle on him. And you got to show like you're doing your research. But I mean, we got the guy right here. He's taking G League players and beating Kawhi Leonard, Giannis for a half, a full strength Los Angeles Lakers team before the bubble, who was perhaps the hottest team in the NBA. I mean, people forget. Think about that. All the way back before the shutdown, the Lakers were the hottest team in the NBA, playing some of the prettiest basketball that we've seen in the last 10 years with LeBron and AD. And then we walked into their house with Spencer Dinwiddie, and company, and just shut them down. And that's another win that's got to go on Jacques' credit. He's beat these teams. He's beat the Lakers, the Clippers, the Bucks. And like, I don't know what else he's got to do or what else he can do, because if you're saying, oh, we don't know how he's going to coach stars, we don't know what he's going to do with that, well, then that's it. You are never going to be able to like Jacques Vaughn, because he's never going to have those stars until he gets hired to be the head coach next season, because this is what he's got and he's doing the best from it. So if you're saying he's got to coach those stars, then he's never had a chance. And with that logic, he's never going to have a chance, because he's never going to have the opportunity to coach those stars. So it just doesn't make any sense to me at all. And he should absolutely be at the top of this head coaching discussion.
People don't make sense. They think you need a star or big name coach to coach stars. No, KD and Kyrie can humble themselves and fall in line with the rest of their teammates. Yes, they are stars, but they can play the Brooklyn way. They can play how this culture is already developed. Jacques Vaughn gets these guys prepared for games. When you looked at the spread against the Bucks, we were supposed to get beat by 18.5. You look at the spread against the Clippers, we were supposed to get beat by 14.5. Even this spread against Orlando, we were supposed to be beat by 5.5. Defying all odds. That's preparation. That's a guy getting guys ready to play. We'll talk more about that. Let's wrap up this Magic series before we go to break. 2 comments for me. Tyler Johnson, got to show him some love. He's coming along with that shot. He was 2 for 3 from three-point land, 14 total points in the Magic game. Another solid performance out of him to follow up the Tyler Johnson game the game before. And who else did I want to give props to out here? Oh, I didn't want to give props to anyone else, but I did want to point out Wes Inwundu. You're a bitch ass. At the end of the game, he checked my man Jeremiah Martin, and he was trying to act tough. He really was just being a crybaby. We put a tweet out at the end with the video saying, like, yo, go shower up, son. You don't want smoke. You don't want smoke with these Nets. Honestly, there's some guys on this team like Dante Hall and even Justin Anderson who played dookie in that game. We hyped him up. We were saying, yeah,
0 for
Justin
12
Anderson.
from 3. Let's just not talk about that. Let's just not talk about that.
After he dunked on Giannis, bro, we were on the Justin Anderson train, but then he came out and he was just not looking like he could shoot the ball. But either way, he's still got that kind of like bulldog mentality about him. He's still kind of that like enforcer out there. I saw he had Jeremiah Martin's back. So Wes Inwundu, it's all good. You're going to get swept by Giannis in the Bucks. You can take your little Uber home down the street. We'll see you next season. You got anything else from the Magic series?
Man, first off, Wes Iwundu, you're a clown. You're going to end up in the G League playing against Dante Hall, and you're going to get your ass beat again. So let's just put that out there. I mean, we got to give a shout out to TLC because TLC, after not starting for a couple of games, he didn't have his best performances. He was fouling a lot, and he came out and put up 17 points in the first quarter, shooting lights out from everywhere. And we were talking about it. We were texting about it during the game. When TLC starts, he's got a different mentality. He's got a different like way to be, and he just goes out and he plays hard. And, you know, you see him rack up those fouls as a result. He's going to get his fouls because he plays so hard. And I'm officially ready to declare TLC a success, a Sean Marks reclamation success, a Kenny Atkinson success, a Long Island Nets success, a Jacques Vaughn success.
Count it.
He's on the list, and he's a player that you got to highlight because he looked great.
We're getting the first round talent that the Sixers saw in him and didn't get out of him. We're getting that talent. We're getting that potential out of him. Count it. He's a killer when you put him out there in the starting lineup. He goes for his. He's fast. He's a shooter. He's going to shoot it. He's going to like sprint coast to coast, make plays. Yeah, sometimes he goes a little bit too hard and he gets fouled and or he gets his fouls up and he's got to be under control and figure that out. But he's still coming along. He's another young guy. We've talked about it on this podcast before. 24, just turned 25. All right.
Let me just say the last thing about TLC. You know, if you think about him for the future, though, he might not even need to calm down because if he's coming off the bench, I want that energy off the bench. I want someone who's going to come out at 1,000 miles an hour and be scrappy and be that kind of guy who will go out and get in someone's face because they're just coming off the bench. You can rack up fouls when you're not starting. All
right, so I'm not trying to cut Hudson off, but we are on our way to the virtual fan seats again.
On our way to Orlando.
Good looks. Yeah, we're about to get beamed in. Beam me up, Scotty. Beam me right into Orlando. When you hear this podcast, hopefully tomorrow, you will have seen us tonight. But we got to get off the pod, go be in the virtual seats. When we come back, we will talk about what happens in this Portland game. We're about to watch it right now. So keep it right here like we're on the radio or something. Keep it locked. Keep it right here. Talkin Nets, episode 47. Keep McPherson and Hudson Flynn. All right, we're right back at it. Man. We lost, but only by 1 point. I'm hype off that. So much just went down. I was literally just telling Hudson, save it for the pod, save it for the pod, save it for the pod. Talking Nets.
We both hopped on ready to go.
Like, let's talk Nets. Everybody's talking about the Nets. This is Talking Nets. So I don't even know where do we start. Let's start before we get into the game, Hudson. Let's talk about the virtual fan experience. Let's talk about Nets Twitter. Let's talk about being the only game on tonight. Like, let's rewind back to 8:30 when we stopped the pod.
When we finished, when everyone who's listening to this podcast is picking up off of us. Yeah. We were at, it was 8:30 and we were getting in, we were logging onto the virtual fan experience. I logged on. I saw our friend Doug Barak. He's always rocking in the virtual fan section. Net super fan, love him. Everybody loves him. Then we saw some other let's call them friends of the podcast, some Nets legends in there, some Maryland legends, our friend CC Sabathia.
Yankees, Nets. You already know, Yes Network. Put us in there, put CC in there. I love it.
That was
King.
Albert King. His number 55 is in the rafters at Maryland.
Kenyon Martin. Kenyon Martin was in there.
Kenyon Martin was there for like 5 seconds.
And then he dipped out like, nah, I'm not about to sit here for this.
CC made it a long time, but he fell asleep. So,
Uh, this time was cooler. And then I don't know, people watching this on YouTube, I changed my jersey because I realized I wore the same exact thing in the last one. I was like, I need to throw another jersey on. So I switched up real quick. And now if you're watching the podcast starts with me wearing my white Jason Kidd jersey. Now I have on the statement jersey from Kevin Durant. Today was a statement game. I'm telling you, people were asking me, well, if the Nets lose, it doesn't affect us. I'm like, yeah, but it's a statement game. If we beat them and send them home, it's a statement. And you know what? We didn't beat them, but we still made a statement. There's a lot of people on Yankees Twitter that are tweeting me, and they're like, yo, Karras is a stud. Yo, Karras is underrated. They're like, yo, I didn't know the Nets were tough like that. I'm like, what? You had to see them in prime time matched up against Dame time on the world stage. No other NBA team playing right now. The whole NBA world is watching this game for you to believe.
That's what it took. And that's what it even took the commentators. So we're in the fan experience and we're watching the TNT stream. So we have the national broadcast, which sucks. We love the Yes Network. Yes Network got us into those seats in the first place.
That, dude. I muted that. Even though the Yes Network stream is behind, I will say the stream that we get as a virtual fans is ahead of my Fox Sports.
It's way ahead. It's ahead of Twitter. It's way ahead of Twitter.
It's fine because I'll play Yes Network so I can get Ruko and Kustok. Shout out to them. They did a great job. Had me laughing a couple times. And it's like instant replay. I'll see it in the feed for the virtual fans. And then it's like, okay, I want to go back and see that bucket. And I can look at my TV. Go ahead.
Yeah. So on the TNT stream, you can tell that they don't know nothing about the Nets. And this is Kevin Harlan. This is like the top of the line. This is
Reggie Miller on the call.
Yeah. Reggie Miller was on the call. And, you could tell they didn't know about the Nets. They came out at the beginning, and Karis LeVert, after he put up 10 in the first quarter, they were like, Karis LeVert is a real player. He's a player in this NBA that can make a difference on a good team. And Nets fans were just there like, okay. Yeah, and then flash forward,
we've been pumping Karis.
Yeah, we've been pumping Karis. And we should continue to pump Karras because Karras put up 37 points, 9 assists, and for most of the game until the fourth quarter, he was better than Dame. Obviously, we were triple teaming Dame, but he had more points, more assists, and he just looked awesome. And I sent out a tweet from the Talkin Nets account. We're going to talk more about Nets Twitter. We're going to talk more about Nets, being recognized as a team on Twitter. But I sent a tweet. I said, can you imagine KD and Kyrie on this team?
Nah, it'd be unfair.
You can't. I think it happened on the broadcast too. I think it was Reggie Miller who was saying, can you imagine what their practices are going to be like? KD, Kyrie, Spencer Dinwiddie. And it was like they were realizing it for themselves, oh shit, KD and Kyrie and Karis LeVert are going to be on this team.
Bro, the last game we shot 86% in the first quarter. You add KD and Kyrie to this team, we're shooting 90+%. I cannot wait. And that's what everyone is talking about. I think I replied to one of Taylor Rooks' tweets because Taylor Rooks said something about we don't talk about Karras enough. Now, okay, she knows. I know she's a national media person. She covers NBA. She's down the bubble. She also covers the NFL. I saw her at Barclays Center for the Black History Month celebration the night we played the Suns, and the Suns sucked. Booker was nowhere to be found that game. The Suns were trash. That's weird. Now we're playing tonight, and we're trying to knock out the Trailblazers to get the Suns in it. Taylor Rooks is tweeting about Karis LeVert, and I replied, I was like, yo, the league doesn't want this. The league doesn't want to see this. The New Jersey team that went to New York figured it out. I said in the beginning of the pod, this league is in denial. They're in denial of what's happening right now. They don't want to see this. They don't want to talk about this. But when it's the only game of the night on, hey, everybody's talking about it.
They had to talk about it. And they had to talk about so many things that they weren't prepared to talk about. You know what they weren't prepared to talk about? Was TLC. Because
TL3, I saw you tweet.
I've never heard someone mispronounce a name so many times as Kevin Harlan mispronounced Timothée Luwawu Cabarrot. I didn't even throw on my French accent for that. It's not that difficult, but he was draining threes. He had 12 points in the first half. And like anytime he would do anything, he'd be like, "Kabaha," and I'd be like, "What the like? Calm down." But like him and Tyler Johnson, they gotta get some talk on this podcast because they came off the bench and they put up 19 and 16 points. And
shooters. Where are my shooters?
We talked about this before. We have that first round potential from TLC. That's hitting. We're getting that, $50 million man from Tyler Johnson. We're getting these players essentially off the street. I mean, Tyler Johnson was really off the street. He made it the whole season. TLC was a G League player. He came up. We couldn't even figure out who he was. I remember the first time we talked about him, it was after the Thunder game. It was the first podcast I was ever on. It was last December. And we talked about him because he put up like 6 points and he had 2 threes out of nowhere. We didn't know who he was. And now we can flash forward and now he's putting up 19 points in the game of the year. These players came off the street. And these are success stories. I know we said it earlier on the pod. Like, I just, you have to give credit where credit is due. And I'm just going to segue hard into it. Credit is due to Jacques Vaughn right now.
Yeah. And we can say it 1,000 times because there's still people in Nets Twitter question it and outside people question it. Well, let's credit Sean Marks for some of the fines, but then Jacques Vaughn for getting the most out of these guys, motivating these guys, coaching these guys at a higher level than Kenny did. Someone said to me, Kenny wouldn't let Karras really run his mid game. Like he's a beast with that midi. I'm like, yeah. And also it's a combination of like, maybe Jacques Vaughn knew that. And now the way that Jacques Vaughn is using him, he's the A1. He's the go-to. Like, do what you want to do. He's letting these guys play above their heads. Like they're all playing like above their potential. Like literally when we put this team together, people laughed at what we were going to do in the bubble. We just went 6-2 in the bubble.
5-3.
5-3. We lost. I see in my head, I thought we were already going to be 6-2.
Right.
I thought we were winning that game.
But I mean, think about Jacques Vaughn. This is what they said in the TNT broadcast. And I'm going to keep talking about it just because, I don't listen to the national broadcast that closely. Normally, I'll have the TNT game on and I'll watch it and I'll like kind of listen to it, but I don't really pay attention like I am when I'm watching a Nets game. And you can tell there are things that they're missing. Kevin Harlan said Jacques Vaughn, and this is just a quote because I tweeted, I put it out because I had to because it was dumb. He said, Jacques Vaughn, quote, should be in the mix of the Nets head coaching search.
Yeah. And I replied
after
to
naming
that.
Ty Lue, and all Jason Kidd,
Mark Jackson,
and all
Jeff
these
Van
other players.
Gundy, who's
these
a
other
broadcaster,
coaches,
a national broadcaster.
all these other coaches. And they said, oh, yeah, and Jacques Vaughn should be in the mix. If the Suns weren't 8-0, and sorry, Suns, that's our bad for not winning that game. But
whatever.
I
mean,
whatever.
I'm already over it for them.
Really
we were riding with them for a little while. We had some fun on Twitter with them and their fans.
But like, if they didn't go 8-0, people would have to talk about the Nets because yes, the Nets went 5-3, and no, that's not as glamorous of a record as 8-0. But the Suns are running their starting lineup from the whole season. The Nets are running their G League starting lineup.
Their meme team, their motley crew.
The Nets just played their motley crew, their G League starting lineup, their names that you can't pronounce lineup.
No-name Nets.
The no-name Nets just came out in a game that didn't matter. That meant absolutely nothing in regards to seeding, in regards to anything except maybe morale and confidence going into the next game.
Energy.
And they went out and they just gave the NBA the game of the year. They knew everyone was watching. Karras knew everyone was watching. TLC knew everyone was watching. Everyone knew everyone was watching. And they said, we're not going to get that respect. We're going to make them have that respect. And they did.
So I look at the game like this. It was a statement game. I wanted us to win it. But as soon as the buzzer went final, I was like, good for Dame. Dame is a global player. Everyone that watches basketball knows Dame time, knows Damian Lillard. He's a superstar in this league. But you know what? The world is on notice of Karras LeVert. We were making those jokes, but like Karras held his own out there. And I mean, when you look at superstars, you can't say Karras isn't a superstar. There was points in this game I was like, carry us, Karras, take us to the promised land. All right, man, let's go into this game because now I want to go through like my notes and just from start to finish, like what I was thinking about this game. It just made me think because Karras, we were looking at cornrow Karras, headband Karras, no hang time on the back of his braids cares. He's got the hang time on the court, but he took the cornrows out. He came out with no braids. He had the baby fro going, and I noticed that right away. That made me think something. I'm like, all right, Karras is on something else, which might be good, might be bad. Turned out being pretty good. He starts balling early. He comes out with a quick 10 points. I think C.J. McCollum matched him with like 10 points. Quickly, like these teams are duking it out. Like they're not backing down. Damian Lillard, and we do need to give him credit all through this game, man. Like from start to finish, he shows you why he's a dog, why he talks like that, why he plays like that. And some of the highlights, the logo shot, late making that steal, stealing it from Karras. I'm just like, bro, Damian Lillard, like you got to respect it. I respect Dame time. I don't necessarily like watching the Nets play against him. At least we won't have to play against him really like in the playoffs or with something on the line. But yeah, let's focus on the first quarter. What did you see in the first quarter that you like? Tyler Johnson, TL3. We were neck and neck with them. It was a tie game at 25. It was tied again later. So
well, here's what I was thinking in that first quarter. I watched them stick with him. I watched them play hard, but I worried that it might be like that first game against Orlando, where we come out, we got all the hype, we got all these eyes on us, and everyone's been there. Everyone who plays sports has been there. They're in a big game, and they come out just on pure energy, pure momentum. You're not thinking, you're just feeling, you're playing on that adrenaline, and then it goes away because it's a chemical, and it goes out of your body, and it goes away. And I was worried that was going to happen to the Nets. So I was watching. I was like, okay. I like the way Karras played. He put up some assists too. But I was watching the threes fall, and I said, okay, those threes can go dry at any moment.
Mm-hmm.
We can stop hitting those threes. And, you know, with the Blazers going 1 of 7, I think, in the first quarter from 3, I was like, okay, they're going to fall because they have Damian Lillard on their team. So I watched that first quarter, and I didn't want to get too much into it. I didn't want to get too hyped up, too worried, too anything, you know, while that was happening, because I was worried, and I knew that it could be an apparition. It's happened before, but I liked what I was seeing. Like after the end of the first quarter, I was like, okay, good stuff.
Yeah, it was even. First quarter ends at 31-31. We were matching them. We were shooting a little better than them. At one point, we were shooting I think we were like 4 for 8. We were shooting like 50%. It's the energy we come out with early. You know, we talked about TLC on this podcast, and I said, yo, when he's out there, he's attacking. When he's starting, he knows his role is to score and to get after, and he does almost too much with his fouls. But it's good to see them come out, and it's good to see them have that energy. It's good to see them not back down from guys that they're looking at, like Damian Lillard, C.J. McCollum, Carmelo Anthony, even guys like Whiteside. Like these are guys that are big name players in the NBA. Man, thank God for TLC. Like more and more I'm watching him play, and I saw you say like this is officially a TLC stan account. More and more I'm watching him play. I'm like, this dude is a star in the making too. He's young. He's just coming into his own, but he gets after it. He's fearless. He's got the 3 ball. He's long. Like I love
like
watching
TLC
him.
on this team next year.
I love watching him this year. I think I'm going to really love watching him next year. I think people are going to sleep and they're going to forget about him, and he's going to really do some things. Now, you know, some guys were quiet in the beginning, in the first half. Like Rhodey only had 3, but you know, he was doing his thing on defense as much as he could. He had the 3 that he had in the first, he had missed.
That was a big 3.
Right. He had missed a couple threes, but that was the big one. What else do I got? Oh, Gary Trent Jr. You know I'm a Duke guy. So Gary Trent Jr. in the early part of the game, he's hitting shots, but he's hitting wide open shots. I'm like, we can't let Gary Trent Jr. beat us. Like, fucking stop him. But then he would cool off. He missed some shots. And by the time we get to the half, we're only down 6, and I'm not worried at half. You know,
no, 6 points. That's 2 threes. That's easy.
That's 2 possessions. And Dame has only got 17 points at the half. So at the half, you're thinking, hey, if he only put up 17, like we're containing him, we're stopping Dame time. Like we're in pretty decent shape. We're looking good. They were shooting 35% from 3. They were shooting about 50% from the field. We had them in the first half. TLC had 13. Karras had 18. I'm just looking at all these, like I'm looking at the box score now from halftime. I'm just like, okay, the score doesn't say that we're winning, that we're up, but the box score says we're up. So we're in good shape.
Yeah, and that's one thing I was thinking when I saw that Joe Harris had only had 1 attempted 3 at that point, but he had been a force. And I sent out a tweet, and that's kind of how I keep notes in these games. And And I said that Joe Harris isn't just a shooter. And that's something that we've been stressing. But Joe Harris plays on the inside. He plays strong. He can drive. He is not just, that guy that sits on the edge and shoots threes and wins a 3-point contest and is just, that white guy that shoots threes. We watched him run the pick and roll with Jarrett Allen looking good. We watched him get some tough rebounds. We watched him play a lot of good basketball. And in this first half, when he was, primarily an inside player, it showed why Sean Marks came out earlier today and said Joe Harris is this offseason's number one priority. Number one priority. He's on the Nets next year. I don't see any way.
I'm glad that Sean Marks came out and said that because, like I said, there were some Knicks fans on Twitter talking about, oh, yeah, we're looking at Joey Harris. I'm like, no, they're not going to let him go to 33rd Street, 34th Street. Like, he's going to be right here in Brooklyn. And he lives up to the nicknames. And we'll get to one of his nicknames later when we talk about his fourth quarter presence. But he's Fundamental Joe. The couple buckets that you see from him, Joey fundamentals. People want to know if he's just a shooter. No, he's not just a shooter. He's got a lot of tools. He's got a lot of skills in his game. There's a lot of things he can do. So we come out of halftime, and I'm kind of worried because when we came out of that halftime with the Clippers, we saw how Kawhi got at us. And I think, Dame started coming at us too. All of them started coming at us. And one thing I want to say and give this guy some light, GT, Garrett Temple, take him to Temple on a Thursday. I don't know if it's me. You probably agree. Garrett Temple is like a calming agent. As soon as we get rattled, as soon as like the second half starts and they start coming at us, Garrett Temple is there. Like a good neighbor, Garrett Temple is there. Like a good Glaber, GT, Glaber Torres. Yo, GT hits a 3, and I'm like, all right, we're good. We're back in it. It's like when they started to pull away a little bit, Garrett Temple, just find
that same thing in the Clippers game.
He did this exactly. That's what I say. He's like a calming agent. He's like, yo, everybody relax, everybody chill. He's like anchoring the ship. Like I'm not gonna let us sink. We're gonna hold right here. We're fine.
And that was a big time to do it because we did go down 9. And I watched us go down 9, and I said, okay, this is a turning point in this game. There's one of two things can happen. The Nets can respond, or the Nets can say, this game doesn't matter, whatever, it doesn't matter. But that's not who the Nets are. That's not who this Nets team is. That's not what they're going to be in the future. They're not the kind of team that's like, whatever, I'm just going to lay down. It doesn't matter at this point. Jacques Vaughn wasn't the kind of guy that's like, okay, put Lance Thomas and Donta Hall out there. Like, we put it together, and then we went on a 13-1 run, and we were back and in control of the game. And Karis LeVert, I mean, it wasn't quite the Kawhi Leonard personal run, but Karis LeVert was a big part of that run, and he was a big part of us getting back into that game. But what is important is that the first part of that run, the first 6 or so points, was when Karis LeVert was on the bench. Karis LeVert didn't come out to start that second half.
Yeah.
And that was huge because if we can keep Karis LeVert on the bench and give him a rest so that when he does play that mid-range game out of the post, which is a very high stress, high intensity, style of play, and he's going to need his rest, we can give him that rest and not feel like we're going to go down 100 points, right?
Right. He's the star. He's A1. He's the guy. And he's got to get treated like the guy. He's got to get some rest. He can't do it off of, playing all the minutes. I mean, he does what he's got to do, man. So in the third quarter, right, we won that third quarter. We put up 37. They put up 24. We took their best shots, right? Like GT, like I said, GT hit that 3. You talked about the run we went on, a 13-something run. I think in my notes I saw we were on a 9-1 run. I think we tied it at 85. And Karis started turning on at one point. And that's when people started really saying, like, yo, Karis is a star. He's one of the best players on the court. Like, he's slept on. Cool. No Nets fans are sleeping on Karis. Rhodey found a 3, and that gave the Nets the lead. I think it was 94-87 I have in my notes. Rhodey with a dab of ranch. I'm going to say that every single time. I don't know. Where are we at in this game when after Rhodey hits that? It's getting late.
We go into the fourth quarter, and I sent out a tweet. I say, don't be surprised if Dame goes off for 30 because that's Dame time. Fourth quarter's Dame time. We knew he was going to come out. We knew he was going to ball.
Had to stop him. We had to stop him.
We knew we had to stop him, and he hit some crazy shots. He hit that one, from the logo, and I think that shot, other than just being like just letting everyone know, like, okay, it's Damian Lillard. If he wants to score, he's going to score. Like, you have to make someone else beat him. It also gave us, I think, one of my favorite quotes of the game, and that goes to, Garrett Temple being a calming effect. he was talking to, I think it was Justin Anderson. He goes up to Justin Anderson. He says, I don't care if it's CJ McCollum. I don't care if that's Michael Jordan. You guard Dame. So Justin Anderson would be coming to help. And that's like a big thing. And we saw him do that. We saw them essentially run a box and one on Damian Lillard.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked. We made other people beat us other than Damian Lillard. And that was huge because looking into the future, looking into this Toronto series, they have players, maybe not like Damian Lillard, but they have players that you need to pay attention to, that you need to switch on, and that you need to give double teams to, or else they're going to score at will. If we don't step out on Pascal Siakam, he's going to hit his threes. If we sit too deep on Pascal Siakam, he's going to drive and dunk on our heads. Fred Van Fleet is like a first team, like all pro player now, apparently, with the way he's been playing. I don't understand what that is.
He has to play like that. We will save the Toronto.
We're going to save it for the end.
We'll definitely have a Toronto preview podcast before the playoffs. So we'll definitely dive into the Toronto Raptors. I just want to make sure we, hit the rest of the points from this game. We don't miss anything. And then we have a voicemail and, we'll tie everything in. But yeah, so Dame, I feel like we bullied him at a couple points in this game where, he looked like he was stressed. He looked like he wasn't getting off, but it's still Dame. You're not going to stop Dame. Like, he's going to do what he does. He's going to tell you he's going to do it, and he's going to do it. But what I want to do is shift gears to talk about Joe Harris. Early on Talkin Nets, I called him Broadway Joey because if you watch this guy, he's in New York. It's like he turns it on when the lights are at their brightest. They say, the thing about New York City is like some people make it, some people can't. The lights are too bright for some. Not Joe Harris. Late in the game, winning time, Broadway Joey, ready for the bright lights. He starts making plays. He's kind of late to the party, but he knows in the fourth quarter and crunch time, I got to be on. And he literally turns it on. He hits a different gear. He hit a big three in the fourth. It was his first three of the game. Comes back, hits another one. He had a reverse layup that I'm like,
I didn't know he had that in his bag.
Look at the bag. Look at the tools in this guy's bag. Joe Harris is not afraid. Like, he's going to get paid. I love seeing it. Headband Joey, Broadway Joey.
Calling him Broadway Joey. I'm just looking with his long hair. He kind of looks like Joe Namath too. He's kind of got a little bit of that Joe Namath
makes
look.
Sense. That's where his nickname is derived
more than just the scoring, the rebounding.
Yeah.
What was going through your head? We had like 2 or 3 possessions where we had like 4 and 3 chances on like them respectively, and we just got every offensive rebound on a team with big players. What was up with that?
Brooklyn strong. We too tough. It's like it's mental toughness, and it comes out on the floor. It's like it's like a little extra. Like yo, they're too tough.
It's Jared Allen physical toughness.
Yeah.
I mean, Jared Allen.
Jared is a changed man. He's a changed man.
He's different. He's built different.
He's a changed man.
And he kind of looks like Dr. J now too.
I love it. The fro is wild. He missed some free throws tonight. I think I don't know. Let me look at his numbers. I don't want to kill him on that because he's been good. But he's a changed man. I've been saying he needs to get on a mean streak. He needs to get tough, play bully ball, and he's shown us a little bit of that. And the Nets have played better as far as like being scrappy and being gritty. And I think part of that comes from some of these G League guys, some of these guys that aren't the NBA superstars. They aren't the prima donnas, pampered players. They know they have to hustle. They have to play hard. Michael Grady had tweeted last game or maybe 2 games ago. He was like, the difference it makes when guys play hard. That's what it is. That's all it is when it comes to who's grabbing boards and who's not.
Yeah, and that was big for us because if we can get those boards consistently as a small team, we have a shot. Like, that is the one area that, if I look at this Nets team, after these 8 games and I'm thinking critically, I'm like, okay, what do we have that's good? What do we have that is going to be a weakness? And going in, I had a lot of concerns about our rebounding. And coming out, we can hang with teams. We can hang with teams with big players on the boards, and not even just when Jared's in. Like, when Rhodey's running at the 5, we can still hang because we just have that mental toughness, that physical toughness to be able to go up and get a rebound. Because, let's look all the way back to the quarantine when we're watching The Last Dance, and they focus on Dennis Rodman and they ask him, what does it take to get a rebound? He said he didn't say it's the biggest. He didn't say it's the best technique, even though he had those things. But he said it was that desire to get that rebound, that tenacity, that nastiness.
I want it more than you, and I'm going to fight you for it.
And show that you want it more than them. And the Nets have that. They have that man to man. You go any person on this Nets roster, I will put up to any player in the NBA and say that Nets person wants it more.
We go hard. We're not laying down. That made me think of Karras. I have a note. It says TWTW, the will to win. Karras, the look on his face is just TWTW, the will to win. Yes, he missed that last shot, but like you said to me before we came on, yo, he's going to have a chip on his shoulder. He's going to carry that with him now into the playoffs. Like, damn, he's not going to sleep tonight. He's going to be thinking about that shot he missed. Like, these guys will not lay down. They all want to fight and scrap and prove that they belong there. When you talk about a Cinderella, when you talk about a team in the bubble, right? It's funny. We're not a team on the bubble March Madness. No, we're in the bubble making this shit feel like March Madness. And the Raptors should be afraid. I did Talkin Sports today, and I said, I guess Raps in 6. After watching the game tonight, I'm like, nah, I can't just concede.
It's going to 7. If the Nets lose, it's going to 7.
Yeah, if the Nets lose, it's going to 7. And you know what? We don't have to go to Canada. This is right there in Orlando. We don't know what's about to happen. Jacques Vaughn is going to watch film. He's going to sit down with these guys. He's going to prepare these guys. These guys are going to get a rest, right? There's guys on this team that are banged up. Like Chioza didn't play tonight. Like these guys are going to get a rest. These guys are going to get time to rehab. Shit. I mean, Jamal Crawford's probably out of it with the pulled hammy, but who knows? Maybe he can figure out how to come back. Like, I am so excited for this playoff series. More excited than I was to watch the Nets play the Sixers last year. And we took games from them. On Talkin Sports, I said it. I was like, I've been watching the Nets go to the playoffs the last few years. Some of the games I went to, I'm like, we don't get swept. In 2015, like, we went to the playoffs and we were the 8th seed and the Hawks were the 1 seed. We forced a game 6. Like, we didn't get swept. I'm like, even last year, we took that first game from the Sixers and, like, we go hard. We're going to bully. It's going to be tough. We lost that game. It was okay. I want to give a shout out before I pass it back to you. I want to give a shout out to Carmelo Anthony. That dude came a long way. I think, looked at him. I would have loved for him to be on the Brooklyn team. But late in that game, he only had 9 points, I think, at the end. But late in that game, he had a steal. He took the ball from Garrett Temple or caused a turnover, which led to a 3 from him. And, like, he made some big plays in winning time, crunch time. And that shows you that's Carmelo. Like, Carmelo still got it. He's still there. So that's just a New York shout out.
Yeah, no, it's that will to win. If you have the will to win, you have the will to win. And that's 90% of it, I think is what Grady said. But, if you're looking at Karras and you're talking about that chip he has in his shoulder, he came out in his post game today. He said one thing. He said the job is not done.
Yeah, it's not done. And I know people want it to be done. I know people didn't even want the Nets to show up. And I'll say, Nets fans, we wanted the Nets to show up, but we were looking at this as an audition for next year. I don't think we're looking at it as an audition for next year. We know who we'd like to see next year. There's actually a lot of guys on this team that we like that aren't going to probably get a chance to be there next year. But this isn't an audition for us anymore. Now we're looking to make a run. Let's see if we can take some games from the Raptors, maybe even take the series, like trouble in the bubble. I said that last episode. Like, we're looking for trouble in the bubble Nets versus everybody. So beware. We're going to definitely do another pod where we talk about the Raptors series. I'm going to kick this voicemail. I haven't listened to it. Hopefully this person isn't reckless. I think the guy tweeted me. So if he didn't leave his name in the voicemail, I'll try and give him credit. Portland, Oregon. Interesting. I didn't realize he was from Portland, Oregon. Let's see what he says. He might just have something to say about the Blazers. Okay, no voicemail because I realized that guy called from, I think, Portland. He's probably a Portland fan, and he didn't actually leave a voicemail. I just have a missed call. So on to the next. We're going to close this thing out. We're at, what'd you say? I
said no clowns on this podcast.
Yeah, no, we're not looking for the Trailblazers to get their, have their night off, get their shit off on our pod. Like, that game doesn't affect us. You were playing do or die ball there. So
yeah, you want to call into a Blazers pod? Call into the Blazers pod that's actually called Talkin Blazers.
Talkin Blazers, probably never. All right. Well, let's wrap this up, man. You got any closing thoughts, remarks, statements? I do. One, before we tie everything up the way we usually do and close it. I made a Nets Twitter list. So if you want to be on the Nets Twitter list, hit me up. I'll add you to it. You can hit me up on Talkin Nets or hit me up on my personal Twitter. I'm just trying to like build the community for the playoffs. And then also for the playoffs, we have merch out there, shop.johnboymedia, search Talkin Nets. We've got a Brooklyn Bubble Boys BBB t-shirt that's out there that, I think the Brooklyn Brigade or somebody, not the Brooklyn Brigade, but someone with that Twitter account, they were feeling that design. We've got the Bubble Nets versus everybody tee. And then we've got the Bubble Nets against all odds, which again, we just, crushed another spread. We were supposed to lose by 10 and we lost by 1. So beating the odds, beating the spreads, the Brooklyn Nets. And throwing that out there with the shirts. Now that we got our new shirts, honestly, these are the first shirts. Nets Head got his shirt. He got one of the older shirts that we didn't design. Hudson and I came up with these. If you write a review to this pod, whatever it is, make it 5 stars. Say something about Keith. Say something about Hudson. Say something about the Brooklyn Nets. And hit us up on Twitter. We will send you a shirt. Nets Head got the first shirt. We got one more to give out. We got one more to throw away for free. If you want a shirt, it's that simple.
Just do it. It's too easy. But here's the last thing I'll say. Flashback before the bubble. The day that the Nets signed Michael Beasley. This is a deep flashback. Remember him? Remember when he was supposed to be on the Nets?
Bees, of course.
Inside the NBA, Shaq comes on the air. He says, the Brooklyn Nets are going to round 2 of the NBA playoffs. Flash forward to the end of that video. He couldn't name a single player on the Nets. But Shaq's looking right. And, looking ahead to our big preview episode, there's a lot of things to talk about there. And I'm excited for it. And if you're a Nets fan, and I shouldn't have to tell you this, but you should be excited for now. We spent all this time talking about 2021, about when our championship window is. Screw all that right now. Right now, we're focusing on this team and this Cinderella story, this bubble Cinderella story, this 12-seed magic, and just enjoy it because we're probably never going to experience anything like this. Next season, we're going to be favorites the whole year, so we're not going to be able to deal with this kind of big chip on our shoulder that we've got. So enjoy it and rock with us because we're going to be there for the whole ride.
Yo, and when we started this podcast, we talked about the roller coasters, the ebbs and flows, the ups and downs of the season, and that flowed throughout. The Nets go on a winning streak. The Nets go on a losing streak. Kyrie gets hurt. People are talking about KD coming back the whole year. We're talking about, it's on the next year. Kenny gets fired. We go into this shutdown, pandemic. What the fuck is this? What are we going to do? Okay, the NBA is going to start a bubble. Okay, the Nets are going to field a team for the bubble, but we got a bunch of guys with coronavirus. These guys start opting out. Who's going to play in the bubble? We got to pick guys up off the street, put this team together. Man, we've come this far. We've built Talkin Nets along for the ride of this season, the season before KD and Kyrie, which is crazy. Like, shout out to the Talkin Nets fam, everybody that listens and rocks with us on Twitter, Instagram. Like, it's 12:30 in the morning. We're recording this pod right now because we know this is the beginning. We know that like this pod, this group of people we're putting together in the Nets Twitter community and, people that all like tweet together, talk about the Nets, listen to each other's podcasts and stuff. Like there's going to come a time when we're at the Barclays Center. There's going to become a time when like we see each other in real life and we're celebrating the Nets and the Nets are bringing a championship back to New York. So let's get there, man. Let's get there. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter as we continue on this journey at Talkin Nets. You can follow me at Keith McPherson. Hudson Flynn will tell you where you can follow him.
You can follow me at Hudson Flynn _, but follow the Twitter. Twitter was rocking tonight. Nets Twitter is riding. Don't forget to follow Keith's new list. I think it's actually it's the Talkin Nets list actually.
Yeah, I made it under Talkin Nets.
Let's build the community. Let's have a good time. I like Nets Twitter. Nets Twitter is so much less toxic than Yankee Twitter and all the other Twitters that I'm involved with.
Way different vibe.
Such a happier vibe, such a nicer vibe. I mean, we have our clowns, but our clowns are so much better than the Yankee Twitter
clowns. It's a different kind of thing, man. It's a different kind of vibe. And the Nets Twitter, the thing about Nets Twitter is like people make the joke, there are no Nets fans. There are no Nets fans. The Nets don't have any fans. Nah, they do have fans. And you're about to see how we mob. You're about to see how we come together and how we rise with this team. Nets fans, call the voicemail. Somebody called the voicemail from Portland. Didn't leave a message, so we didn't play it on the pod. But we want to play voicemails on the pod. We also want to have Nets Twitter guests on the pod so people can hear your voice, hear about you, why you're a Nets fan, why you became a Nets fan, follow you, and we just keep this thing running. Make sure you subscribe to the pod. This is episode 47. We haven't even hit episode 50. We'll do something cool for 50. That's going to come up soon. But make sure you do a rating, review, and tell a friend to tell a friend. That is how this thing grows. We went from 0 people listening to the pod to a couple hundred people listening to the pod, and it's going to keep growing. We went from 0 followers to 1,400 followers, and it's going to keep growing. So it helps with you telling your friend, yo, you're a Nets fan. Yo, even if you're not a Nets fan, you're an NBA fan, or if you rock with John Boy Media, like, it's a no-brainer. Follow the brand. The brand is strong. What else we got here? That's pretty much it. The next pod, I don't know when we'll record it. I'll link with Hudson to talk about it and figure out when we'll do like a look into the playoffs and a preview of this Toronto series. That'll be episode 48. And, I mean, it'll come out sometime next week. We've been doing 2 episodes, an episode after every game or every 2 games. So we'll figure out how to get this next episode out before the playoffs start. You got anything else, Hudson?
Nah, Keith, close it out.
Yeah, sounds good. We're in the virtual seats. We're on the tweets. I got to start putting some bars on Talkin Nets. I'm always rapping on Pinstripe Strong. I don't rap on here. I just close it out. Let's go Nets. Brooklyn.